Okay. We'll let you start us off, D-Bake, and start by telling us who you are, a little bit of background, and all the good stuff.
Okay, D-Bake, Daryl Baker. I am from Colorado Springs, Colorado. I went to the Air Force Academy to get my commission. I went to Vance for pilot training, Dover for PIQ, which was different from, I guess, most of you now. And then Travis was my first assignment.
Okay. And what do you do now?
And now I currently fly the KC-46 out at McConnell Air Force Base in Kansas, for those of you that don't know where that is. Yeah.
And how are you feeling about your current assignment?
So there's pros and cons to every assignment. A lot of that went into picking my assignment was, family was a consideration. So some of the things I like and don't like kind of go hand in hand, but I had to pick and choose. I'll start with like the negatives of coming to this assignment was that it's just new. And so there's a lot of growing pains that I've been here for. A lot of uncertainties when you transfer to not only just a new plane in general, like a new assignment, but it's a brand new plane. So there's a lot of like things that aren't set up, like the upgrade process. We don't have anybody that's been through an IP upgrade yet. Like we're just gonna maybe start that this fall. There's a lot of things that you don't know are wrong with the plane until you get the plane. And so I've been here for the cargo issues and just all the random things that you don't find out until you get the plane and you get it on the road. And that's what we're here for. So that part has been frustrating, I would say. What's that?
That's just Zach. No, he just came off mute, but you're good.
Oh, okay. So I think that's been the most frustrating part. And then it's hard when you come from something so good as far as like the community wise, like what I had with the Muleys. We just didn't have that camaraderie built yet. Part of that comes with not having a real mission. We're not getting out on the road, getting to know each other, which trickles into just not feeling as close to the people that you work with. That's something that I miss from the old squadron. So, I mean, in a nutshell, those are my negatives for the assignment. You could tie it all to that. As far as the positives go, though, like we wanted to start a family, and for us being closer to home, being closer to family. If I would have went to Dover, we have no family on the East Coast, so it would have made it difficult for my parents to come out and visit, and my wife's family to come. And then as far as flying goes, you guys know how it is. You could be on a mission with little notice. It's kind of hard to plan and have family come out without taking too much leave. Like all the guys here, they're used to having use or lose leave. Use or lose leave is not a thing, in the 5, because if you want to be home, you need to be on the books. So that part's nice. There's a lot of predictability to my life. So my wife's happy with me being home more. I miss going out with the crew.
Definitely.
Other good things, I'm a part of a lot of firsts being in the 46. We're the first to like do pretty much everything that we do is a first. I got to deliver the 21st aircraft to the United States Air Force. Not many people get to fly the new plane with the new plane smell. I went to the Boeing factory to pick that up, did the tour of the whole factory. That was cool. I got my 75, 767 type rating from the United Airlines Training Center out in Denver, paid for by the Air Force. So that was cool too. So there's a lot of opportunities like that.
That's awesome. And some of the negatives you were talking about, do you see that just getting better with time, just with the plane itself?
Yeah, definitely. As we find things that are wrong, we're getting them fixed. Like the cargo thing, that was a pretty quick fix. Surprisingly, we were grounded for a month or two, but Boeing got the fix to us. We swapped it out. We went out there and tested it. So as far as the things with the plane, there's a lot of things that are quick fixes. Some things will take longer. As far as like being fully operational, Boeing this past summer said they were gonna foot the bill for the new remote vision system, RVS 2.0. And so that's gonna take a few years because they're developing a whole new camera system. They've already kind of proposed some designs. Our boom operators right now are going out to Boeing and testing the new things that they want to do, and helping give that direct input for what they want to see from that new system. So that'll be a few years. But until then, it's getting better. We're out there flying a lot more. And I would say one thing I learned being here was that there's a lot of politicalness to being in the new plane. The Air Force wanted us to look bad. They did not want us to highlight the good things about the plane because they wanted Boeing to pay to make it better, right? Like, yeah, it works. It could give gas. It would be just fine. But when you're the brand new airplane, the Air Force wants the best. So it's intentional in everything in the headlines being negative. And now that they've said, oh, we're going to fix the plane, now they tell us, oh yeah, get out down the road. When can you deploy? Let's use you for this. Like, they want us to do all kinds of things so they can put us in highlight stories now. So
Right, yeah. That's awesome. Well, how did you find out about this assignment?
Well, I mean, I think everybody knew about the KC-46. You know, it's been around for a while, the fact that it was supposed to come out. And then basically it just a PSDM dropped to the execs. I happened to be one of the execs at the time. It basically was a call for applicants to apply for the KC-46. So that's how I found out. I kind of was looking at other programs like Phoenix previously, and the 46. I didn't want to transfer to a tanker like the 135 because I just didn't want to fly 135. KC-10 was getting old, so it's like, well, if I Phoenix to another plane, I want it to be at least a cool, good new plane. So the 46 wasn't available to Phoenix to previously, and so that was a way to get to the 46 and be a part of building that culture, that kind of stuff, helping them be more like the Muleys. So I got a little sold on building that culture.
That's awesome. And in the process, you said you had an interview for it, or was it just an application?
It was an application. So similar to like Phoenix, they're going to ask for like your last 3 OPRs, your math mentorship tool, your check ride stuff, all that stuff, and they'll send it off. And then a board will review the packages and pick people to come. Oh shoot!
Are you still with us? Okay. Okay. Good. No, we got you. So having your pros and your cons, looking back, would you have done anything differently, or have any regrets, or you feel confident with your decision?
I wish I could have. So you're gonna have to leave Travis at some point. You have to leave the Double Deuce. I wish I could have rode out my time in the Double Deuce as long as possible, and then did this. if I could do that, yeah, I would say that. I wish I stayed a little bit longer. I left a little early.
That's awesome. And maybe we can have you back. So do you have any advice for?
That would be nice.
Do you have any advice for people looking for their next assignment, looking to see what's out there, kind of like what you would impart to us?
First of all, I miss you guys too. I saw that message just pop up. But I would recommend, like, what you guys are doing right now is awesome. Reaching out to people that you know are doing different things and just ask them, hey, how is it? And asking all the questions, because I think, me especially, I don't mind people asking me questions. They could ask me a million questions, and I'm going to do my best to help them make a decision that's right for them and their family, because not all the time is it just a decision for you and what you might want. Sometimes you got to give a little bit for your family life back home. So just reaching out to different people that have done different things, having those connections to be able to say, hey, what what was your experience like? What is it like right now? And then hoping they give you real candid feedback on, hey, how it is for them, so that you can see what's out there and then see if it sounds like something that might be right for you.
Totally. I agree with that 100%. Well, thank you so much for everything that you have imparted. Happy to have you back. And Alex, if you want to also tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and a little bit about who you are.
Why is the
Woo,
Wi-Fi so
Alex in the hot seat.
Yeah, I use my cell data.
So I'm Alex Carter. Grew up in Seattle, went to Washington State
There's at least
University,
a lot of people here.
ROTC.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I think we've got one person
All I did was
unmuted.
the open book.
Whoever, Drew's iPad.
Yeah, that's what.
Hit add,
Yeah.
and I can choose.
I can hear good old Anna Smith in the background.
And taking time. Hopefully it's not one below it. Scrolls down.
Anyone run into the Sandyvale office real quick?
Oh,
Thank you, whoever said I could mute him. I did not know that. So he's muted. All right, go ahead.
all right. Yeah, so did ROTC at Washington State University, and then obviously spent 4 years in the 22nd as a first assignment. First choice C5s to Travis out of UPT. So that was a blast. You're on mute.
Thank you. So what do you currently do now?
I am currently an AMLO, so that's an Air Mobility Liaison Officer at Fort Hood. It's just an hour north of Austin in Texas, and it's the largest Army base in the U.S., so it has an entire corps there. I don't work at the corps. It goes corps, division, like brigade, regiment, and I actually work at the regiment. What we do is we kind of bridge the gap between Air Force and Army for moving their personnel and equipment to and from deployments, exercises, and we try and help organize OSTs. That's kind of lower on our priority list, but we're embedded in what we call the S4 G4, which is logistics, and we move to and from the 3, which is ops. And we honestly just make sure that people are talking to each other, that like logistics makes a plan and they actually tell ops. It's kind of a weird thing, but I feel like I'm an operator sometime of just like, plugging in like, oh, you talked to him, and hopefully they have. And if they have not, then we kind of solve that problem. There's another AMLO who likes to say that we're spackling, where we just fill the holes wherever it's needed. So our job is kind of, it's, we're not a master of really anything. We do everything.
And are you enjoying your assignment as an AMLO?
I am, but it's very different. Like I genuinely miss the C5. I like probably one of the biggest perks of this AMLO gig is these 2 weeks that I come back and fly with the 22nd every quarter. But you have a lot of autonomy to do what you see fit in your unit, because there's only a few AMLOs stationed at each base, and your squadron is located in a separate location. So you're not co-located with your chain of command. So you don't have that camaraderie that you do at the 22nd. There's only 5 AMLOs at Fort Hood, and that's the largest out of all the operating locations in the U.S. and that we have in Europe and PACAF. So, you kind of figure out where you're needed. You kind of poke and ask, and you embed yourself with a mobility warrant at your unit, and you hope you can help out in any way you can. And if you don't do that, then obviously you have a job with your with the 621st is where I'm at, 621st MSOS. And you have an Air Force job. And so then you also got to do that. And you just kind of find time and utilize yourself as best you can.
Would you say you have like a good interaction with the Army, as in like off not just working with them, but possibly like after hours?
I don't. I have a good working relationship with them, and that's half the battle, is trying to develop a relationship with them, because they don't really understand you or the differences, because an Army lifestyle is very, very different from an Air Force lifestyle. And also the people that seem to enjoy Army are just different from the people who enjoy Air Force. Two different doctrines that are also taught. And then as you go up in rank, you just kind of believe in different things. But I've developed a great working relationship with a lot of the guys in the 4. And but for after hours, I think it's just difficult because I do live an hour away from Fort Hood, so I don't really spend extra time after hours to really hang out there. And that could be partially my fault for, you do go on a lot of TDYs, and that's good, because then I get opportunities to come back here and fly. But then you go off, you do an exercise or a training event, or you go down to NTC, and you're just away a lot, I guess. But at least it's planned. It's not like in the C5 where 24 hours all of a sudden you're leaving on a Friday that you didn't know about. But
Right. Well, in the squadron yesterday, I heard you talking about some of the opportunities that you have as an AMLO, certain certifications you can get. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So the AMLO position is different at each operating location. You're utilized in different ways. So I am more utilized for heavy equipment. So like 777s and Strykers and things of that nature, because that's what's located at Fort Hood. Other guys who are attached to the 82nd Airborne and the 101st, they get jump billets. So they actually, they jump with their units. So you can go into one of those billets and end up jumping out of planes for a while. Then there's other guys who go to Pathfinder and Air Assault School, and those are seen as, upgrades to the AMLO field. So if you go, it looks really good in our career field, just because, Pathfinder is something that also the Army looks at, that you get a special tab for, and they appreciate that, because you learn about additional field nav and landing zones and drop zones and things of that nature that we handle a lot and that we work with a lot. You could also go to Ranger School. I think there's only been one AMLO who's ever attempted it. And he had to get special permission, because we don't want to make ourselves look like a fool in front of the armies by sending someone who
You can do it.
not a chance. From what I've been told, whatever training and school you want to attend, if you justify it and it makes sense, they will send you to it, paid for by our unit, which is great. So the opportunities are pretty endless, but it's just if you want to get that additional training on top of what we've already gotten.
That sounds like there's a lot of opportunities available. How did you find out about the AMLO position, and what was the process for getting?
Originally, one of my old UPT buddies, he told me about it, and I looked it up online, and it sounded like you would be an Army grunt, an infantryman in the front lines. And I was like, dude, no, I'm not doing this. This sounds horrible. But it turned out when I deployed to Kuwait, so as C5 guys, there's a chance you'll get a ground deployment. And I got one to Camp Arifjan in Kuwait. And it just so happens that the, what we call the detachment commander of the AMLOs, there's only 3 AMLOs at a time now in theater. And the one who's on G series orders is in City Dock at Camp Arifjan, and that's where I happened to deploy to. So I ended up sitting next to him, because we're both Air Force guys, working with Navy, Army, Marines. And I got pretty close to the AMLOs that were coming in and out. And they all were people who I really liked, people who I'd love to grab a beer with. It reminded me a lot of the feeling of the 22nd, just like it was a great community, a lot of bros. And I was like, okay, well, if these are the type of guys who not only are awesome, but they really talk up this job and they really, really like it, then I'm going to take a second look at this. So I ended up looking more into it, and it turns out it's as tactical as you want it to be. If you want to focus more on the logistics and the kind of the air mobility aspect of it, then that's also available.
And how long is this assignment? And how long is this assignment?
Traditionally, it's a normal 3-year assignment. I mean, I can leave a little bit earlier, obviously, if I coordinate that. There are some AMLO billets that are only 1 year. So there's a 1-year remote, which, you go to Korea and you do that. And that's a guaranteed follow-on. So that's a great gig. I highly suggest that to anyone who's just trying to find a stopping ground between the C5s, because obviously I knew I had to leave at some point. That's one of the things, you have to figure out what your follow-on is. And I knew I wanted to come back to the C5. So I picked AMLO. What I didn't really know too much about was the 1-year remote AMLO, which you get a guaranteed follow-on. So if you're looking for, something to Europe, that's a great option.
And what was the process like? Did you have to send an application in or interview for it?
I did not. It's pretty easy. It's kind of just, you tell your commander like, hey, I'd like to go AMLO. And they're like, oh shit, you do? Okay, yeah, we'll definitely send you there.
It's Phoenix now.
So there is a Phoenix billet, and so we like to say that we're getting better. It used to be kind of the people who didn't want your squadron, you'd go to AMLO. It's now, it's more and more so where people are picking and wanting to become AMLO because they're realizing how great of an opportunity it is. Because you do get a lot of joint interaction, and you get that that other side of it, which looks really good, on your surf. Unfortunately, you don't get, as of right now, you don't get joint credit, which is really weird because, I work every day with Army and occasionally Marines, but you don't get that aspect that could potentially help you for that command track. But it does look good. But yeah, there is Phoenix. You can Phoenix into it now, which I believe the next one's going to McCord if you're interested in being in the Seattle area.
That's awesome. What are some of the, you talked previously about some of the pros. Are there any cons that you have seen?
Absolutely. Kind of what Baker said, it's a new squadron. So originally, AMLOs would just kind of become an AMLO and hang out with no guidance, no oversight, no nothing at their operating location. Now we have a squadron. It's pretty new. There's only been 2.5 commanders, and we're still going through the growing pains of figuring out how to have a squadron work for the AMLOs as opposed to the AMLOs kind of focusing more of their time on the squadron. So there's definitely a balance that needs to be had. So that can kind of be tough, where you feel like instead of doing our job in working with the regiment or the division or the corps, we're kind of supporting our squadron more, which it should be vice versa. So that's one of the growing pains. There is a deployment that's guaranteed. You will have to deploy unless, maybe we'll pull out of the Middle East entirely. I'm deploying next month to Afghanistan, and it's a 4-month deployment. So maybe we'll retrograde out of there entirely, and that's one less deployment, and maybe you won't have to deploy. So that is one of the downfalls. Also, the fact that you don't have the camaraderie. You don't, I love coming back to the 22nd. I love coming back here because I still obviously know a lot of the people. I always, that's something you just don't have. There's, like I said, there's 5 AMLOs at Fort Hood, and that's the largest. There's one AMLO in El Paso by himself, and I feel so bad for him. And so, you just don't get that interaction unless you maybe reach out to some of the Army captains or, but I think that's probably the biggest thing is you don't have that camaraderie, and that's huge. It really is a big deal.
Looking back, would you have done anything differently, or do you have any regrets with the process?
I think I would have done the 1-year AMLO gig with the guaranteed follow-on. I think that would have been pretty sweet. The more I look into it, the more I realize how good of a deal that is. you know, the one thing is you have to understand, I kind of convinced myself that I would be flying more than I actually am. And I think obviously some circumstance happened that obviously I couldn't control. COVID is a big reason. But you have to understand that you are learning so much more than just flying. There's so many things that I think I'm getting out of this that a lot of majors don't even get until they're senior, you know, about to put on lieutenant colonel or something like that. So I think that's a great thing. So it really broadened my horizon. It potentially set me up for some really good things down the road, especially if you want to stay in for 20. So it has a lot of opportunities, and it's just if you're willing to maximize that time and actually take those opportunities.
Awesome. And do you have any advice for people looking for their next assignment?
Yeah, don't wait until you're on the VML. And just, you know, just because you're asking about jobs doesn't mean you want to leave the 22nd. You know, don't think that you're just trying to bail on the squadron. It's more about just understanding what's available to you. Because I honestly didn't know what was out there except for UPT and C5s to Dover. I thought those were my options, and then maybe a white jet. So just asking and having this, I think, is great. You know, you kind of hear and you just broaden your horizon on what's out there. So just ask around, maybe, you know, get into my peers or whatever else is available that could potentially show you what jobs are out there, as opposed to waiting for that email to be like, hey, you want to be an exec in Saudi Arabia for 2 years? You know, it just ask around, do this, have more of these. This is great.
Definitely. Well, I'll open the floor if anyone has questions for our guests today. Or if anyone wanted to say anything, last parting shots.
I assume he's asking you, Alex.
Yeah, I'm thinking. No, but thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed this, and I think this is great for the squadron. So great idea and great job.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask some. I guess this is more for like maybe Colonel Trumbull or maybe Major Fernandez, but kind of like what he just talked on. Like, I literally don't know like what jobs are out there. The only thing I know is, like you said, C5s with Dover, UPT, and then like, so when along our process of being here should we start to ask those questions, and who should we ask them to, basically?
Perfect. These are, I couldn't have planned this better. First off, I'm going to put out a disclaimer. So Alex Carter and D-Bake are real people. They're not actors, and they were not paid or promised anything for these comments. So it's awesome that the Chief Pilot Office, Lily Forlini, for setting this up. This is huge, right, guys? Because along with Tyler, what you're just saying is you don't know what you don't know, right? And it's so easy. I felt this up until I was a major, where I was like, unless you're like in this club of people that are in the know and you get this gouge passed around, you just don't know. And it's like, well, I'm just going to fall into it. It's just luck. It's just timing. And that's kind of BS. And part of my intent when I came into this job, the beauty of being the DO for a couple of years and then flying up is, for one, I got to know everyone. I got to get the feeling for the squad and what people are yearning for. And then having my previous experience with what I just talked about, I can change that climate and shift the culture. So with having Lieutenant Colonel Kramer reinvigorate and just kind of revolutionize the chief pilot paradigm, you know what I mean? Because the way it's been in the W's previous to him stepping in is the way it was at Dover in 2010 when I was there after being a FATE. Really, it was just, you know, where you put your more experienced guy to just kind of be a mentor when able, but really the outreach wasn't there. The communication really wasn't there. The professional development investment wasn't there. So thanks, guys, for doing this. Let me talk to AMLO real quick. So there is a plethora of opportunities for you guys to do things. And I will say this, that timing is a big piece of it. And when I say timing, I mean like with the KC-46 with D-Bake, there was a huge vacuum, if you will, of opportunity for bodies. The KC-10 had not been divested yet, meaning hadn't been stood down yet. So there wasn't this pool of people to pull from just yet. So what happened? The Air Force said, now we got to take a little bit from every airframe where we can. So an opportunity dropped down. Where do they drop down from? The wing, the group, to the squadron. Sometimes, well, I just know this. Who sees the PSDMs, which is a personnel status document for manning, or I forget what the PSDM stands for, but really it's just a notification for opportunities. They come down to the exec office first, and the execs, do they get first dibs? Well, they find out first, right? But I'll be the first one to tell you I don't play favorites, right? The execs are here. I get to see them do work. There's opportunities that they have that, you know, they're the first one to jump on things, but I'll be the first one to tell you that they're not exclusive to getting these opportunities. Even though learning from D-Bake and hearing from Alex, both being execs under Paul Pollock, they had that opportunity. And he wasn't, an in club, or he didn't have favorites either. It's just they raised their hand and said they were interested. So as far as timing is concerned for these opportunities, a lot of that you can't control, but an awareness of these things you can. And I'll be the first one to tell you, we have a wing commander that gives this gouge directly. I just had an hour-and-a-half meeting with him with the other squadron commanders, the ops squadron commanders yesterday. And the gouge he gives is so free-flowing, it's almost dangerous, because I need to watch what I say, because we can either spook the herd or get everyone interested in something where there's just really not a lot of opportunity. But I will tell you this, that I can get that information very quickly, and I will push it out to you guys when I think it's appropriate. So we do have an O-call scheduled on the 17th. I pushed out an email. I think I also put it in Slack to all the pilots. It'll be in our Heritage Room. I think I said it. What time was it, guys, that I set it up for? What? For the O-call, the officer's call. Check the email. I set it up on the 17th, which is next Thursday. We're going to be talking about a lot of these opportunities. But AMLO is one that will always exist, guys. And it's always going to exist for airlifters, because the Army has an insatiable appetite for expertise at the corps division, 2-star, and then the brigade, 1-star colonel level. Brigade is like a wing, okay? A division is like a numbered Air Force, like 18th Air Force. And then a corps is like a MAGCOM, if you want to think of it that way. That's kind of like the equation there. And then a battalion is like a squadron. The regiment was pretty much done away with. The regiment was like a group, like we have here, but they largely did away with that in most instances in the Army. And I'm speaking from my experience with 1 year at Fort Leavenworth with the Army. Now, the professional development that a 1 year with the Army provides you, or 2 years or 3 years with the Army, is amazing. You also have to build the relationships. You also have to be outward reaching, because when someone new shows up, the Army is very tribal. I'll use that term. When I say tribal, like they very much all think the same according to their AFSC, which they call that their MOS. So when someone new comes in and is embedded into their tribe, if you'll call it, the way they're constructed, they're just not very welcoming like we are in the Air Force. But you also have to understand the background. They've deployed multiple times. They've had kids that have been born that they once they saw them, they were 3 or 4 months old. You know what I mean? Because they'll deploy for up to 15 months, or 12 months. They live a harder life. I'll be the first one to tell you that. And I think Alex Carter will be the first one with the head nod to say, they look at the Air Force, especially the pilots, the aviators, and they think we're spoiled brats, period. Okay? And I'll be the first one to tell you that I felt that way when I showed up for a year and listened to them speak about their experiences. I gained an experience or an appreciation for the Army, and I also gained an appreciation for the Air Force and also the C5 community. Because if there's a community inside AMC, it's us that gets the good deals, period, not. Okay? So it's very, very hard to try and convince you guys that there's these opportunities that are good, but they are good. Okay? And I'll also be the first one to tell you that you can't stay in California forever, right? You can't stay in the Double Deuce forever. But everyone has opportunities. Each assignment has its benefits. Alex Carter gets to live in Austin, Texas with his wife. He controls his schedule. Are all these things true, Alex? Yes. He also gets to fly, right? He gets his gate months moving along. He gets to stay in the community. So if he wants to come back to either Dover, San Antonio, or Travis, I can work that because he stayed inside the community. He stayed inside the functional, right? The C5 functional, Derek Patrick's purview. And now Mo Korish from Dover is a new captain there in AFPC, that I can say, hey, I want to bring Alex Carter back. It's good for his family. It's good for his professional development. I want to bring back all that Army experience he's had. And they go, yep, sounds good. As opposed to if someone else outside the community wanted to bring him over to, I don't know, 135. That's probably not going to happen. I'll be also the first one to tell you that I pushed this stuff out. So I pushed out this mentor guide in that email. If you check your email that I sent you, there's a lot of good gouge in there, okay? Talking about the developmental opportunities. Because here's the thing, guys. The bottom line is the airlines have stopped hiring for probably the next 2 years plus, period, done. A good buddy of mine who's a captain at United, he's on the furlough list, and he's a captain in United, and things aren't looking great on the outside. So having opportunities and options is huge, because you never want to be painted into a situation where you're like, man, I was going airlines. I'm all in. I'm not worried about doing anything in garrison. I'm not worried about volunteering for additional duties. I just want to stay flying, period, dot. And then you find yourself in a situation where you're like, well, the best I can hope for is maybe major right now, because I have not developed myself whatsoever in the Air Force. I know I'm going on tangents here, guys, but I'm trying to give you a peek into the why behind a lot of things we do. AETC, AMLO, those are constants, right? And having 2 tours in AETC, if you want to have stability in your life, if you want to have family time, if you want to have, an opportunity just to kind of slow things down a little bit or be influencers with young airmen in our Air Force, that's where it's at. Period, dot. I love my time in AETC. I did it twice. You know what I mean? And San Antonio is not a bad place. So you can do the 2-and-2 program, which is amazing. Now, Tyler, to answer your question, everybody else's question, when do you want to start talking to somebody? Now. Like now. Set up some time with the chief pilot office. So Cosmo Kramer, we have very similar backgrounds. We were both FATEs together. We both went to C5s after that. We've both been pit instructors, right? We're both O5s and C5 community instructors, okay? Him and I talk multiple times a day. If you're in his ear, you're in my ear, period, dot. Because I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't have enough time to sit down with all of you for an hour and a half, even though I love doing that. Now, I will say, when you get close to your VML cycle and it's time for you to move on, we're going to sit down and we're going to have an hour and a half long discussion on what's right. But the beauty is you've had meetings with Lieutenant Colonel Kramer leading up to that, and you know what's out there. You know the pluses and minuses. You know it probably fits your family because you had that discussion with your spouse, with your extended family, with your kids, depending on your age, right? So when you come in the door and sit down with me, it's not like, holy smokes, I didn't think about that. It's, I know what I want, boss. Can we make this happen? Now I'll look at you in the face and be I'll be frank with you and tell you where I think you fit, right? And getting that position. Because I'll be the first one to tell you again, not everybody can get G5s at Ramstein. Shocker, right? Not everybody can get G5s to Ramstein or Hawaii. Because guess what? They're overmanned right now. AETC needs help. AMLOs needs help. And AFPC, right? AFPC, it sits in Randolph, are fair traders, right? They're not going to just shoot everyone over to Big OSA, which is, your Gulfstreams or your 757s, the 89th. They're not going to push all the talent. They're not going to push all the people there, because that's how you get fired, right? That's how communities die. AMLO, AETC, Crossflow with Phoenix, and that's why we have these programs to identify folks. So if you're interested in doing one of these Phoenix programs to go do AMLO, and oh yeah, by the way, AMLO, there's like, let me think, 27 locations, Alex, I forget how many locations there are for majors and captains all around the United States and overseas, okay? Like there's a spot in Italy, in Vicenza. I got to meet that AMLO when I was in Italy with NATO. There's all these opportunities that are out there. And the sooner you have those conversations, and the sooner you think you have an idea of 1, 2, or 3 would be good for me and my family, and having those conversations with Cosmo, I can talk, because every week I talk to APC and say, hey, I'm fishing for this probably in about 2 VML cycles. Put this person on your radar, because I want them to maybe get over to Germany, or I want them to get to that 1-year AMLO to Korea, right? That Chewy Presnell's going to. Because guess what? When you do those 1 years, not all AMLOs, when you get those 1 years, you get like points on the scale of what does this person want next, and you get a follow on, okay? Because right now, the tapestry of what's available does not look like C21s and G5s to the suite locations because of the timing we're in right now with AETC. AETC sees the situation with the airlines as an opportunity because they can retain their instructors. They can increase their capacity by pushing people into the pipeline. So that's like the peek under the tent. I know I talked to you guys about that on our last O call, which is about a month and a half ago. We're going to talk about it again here next week on Thursday. I said a lot of things, so I'm going to open it up for just a couple minutes for any questions on what I just said. And then, of course, I'll answer more when we have our O call.
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say thank you. I thought that was really informative, and kind of like big picture, really helpful.
All right, nobody else online? Any questions? Okay,
This is directed
D-Bay,
probably,
go ahead.
sorry, sir. Hey, this is directed more towards the chief pilot office. I was curious if we could do like some training sessions or something on like Talent Marketplace or MyPers, because that's stuff that I've never really looked at before. So maybe a little dive into some tutor sessions on that.
Definitely. Thanks for
That's-
that. I will pass that along.
And Jake, that's on the email I shot out. So there's two pieces of Talent Marketplace we're going to address the O call. I'll be the first one to tell you this, that typically that's the commander's realm is typically where Talent Marketplace sits, and then the member. But I'm in the process of bringing Colonel Kramer into Talent Marketplace and trying to give him the same rights I have, so that way I'm not a single point of failure along the process. But the good news is I know, and I push you guys the timelines for Talent Marketplace. If you open that email and look at the attachments, you'll see October's me busy for the summer VML. That's when we have our conversations and I start pushing you guys for positions. But that's a great question. I appreciate that. But yeah, tune in on Thursday because we're going to talk about it.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Okay. D-Bake, Alex, love you guys, man. Thanks for tuning in. You know, once a muley, always a muley. If I have the opportunity to pull you back into this team, here's my vote. I'm going to tell you I'm going to do it because I know your quality. I appreciate all those words. I think they came from the heart. I know they came from the heart. I appreciate it. This team loves you. Be safe out there, right, Alex, on your deployment. D-Bake, while you're flying out in Kansas, be safe, brother. And we'll be seeing you guys around the flagpole. I appreciate it.
Sounds good, sir. Thanks for including us in this. It was good. It was good to see you guys and hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Have a good
Bye.
day.
Absolutely. Chief Pilot Office, bringing it strong.